Thanks to frequent and long trips to London, we managed to immerse ourselves in the life of the capital of the United Kingdom. Again and again, studying its multifaceted and changeable character, we comprehended its contradictions and penetrated its secrets. And despite this, doubts and indecision seized us when, taking up the pen to write the first page of a book called London, we realized the greatness and complexity of the task. The impossibility of encompassing everything became distressingly obvious, and following it was the certainty that the picture would be incomplete. Yes, we have seen a lot, but can we guarantee that we have seen everything, remembered everything, and told everything? We have to resurrect in memory and show readers not one city, but several cities in one, or better to say, a whole world. A world where different extremes and excesses come into contact, where you are blinded by the miracle of the highest civilization and saddened by such heartbreaking and hopeless poverty, which you will not find even in the most backward countries. Here coexist never intersecting aristocracy of the highest quality and the lowest and most disgusting rabble. Treasures on which you can buy 24 kingdoms, and thousands of starving proletarians, vast quarters where each mansion is like a palace drowning in the greenery of gardens built on the border of magnificent parks so vast that it seems as if the city has gone out into the rural expanse and 2 steps away from them. A pile of huts and shacks in which human beings do not even have enough air to fill their lungs and survive. London in the Middle Ages, we hope that our task will be simplified by the fact that in London, this multitude of adjacent but unequal cities, the borders are always clearly defined and always insurmountable. There are capitals, say Paris, Vienna, Madrid, Berlin, whose life forms a single whole. In them, people and things merge and form something more or less harmonious. In London, nothing like this. There, society is divided as deeply as the political rights of its members are inalienable. And therefore, one should write not 1 book, but 20, for only in this way would it be possible to give an idea of London and cope with the task. Nevertheless, we will try to sincerely and succinctly present on these pages the results of our research, different in time, but united by one and unchanging goal. Indeed, we have long wanted to sketch a picture, perhaps of the most curious city in the world, a city in which human society appears in opposites rising to the highest ideals of civilization that can be achieved and descending to the bottom of the most shameful baseness in the world. And may those who have honored us with a benevolent attitude towards our writings of another kind deign to accept from us gratitude for their help and show the same sympathy for our new work. Their high praise will serve as the most flattering reward for the author of these lines. If it is true that all roads lead to Rome, then it is no less true that one must know through which gates to enter the city of Caesars and popes. This statement is true for all truly beautiful cities. It is best to sail to Naples from its bay to Constantinople through the Dardanelles and the Golden Horn. In Paris, first of all, you need to see the Arc de Triomphe on the Place de l'Etoile, the Champs-Élysées, and the Place de la Concorde, but London begins with the Thames. Our century, which has already made many wonderful discoveries and made a huge leap into the future, wanted to pass on to posterity one more creation, more striking, gigantic, and promising than all the previous ones. He intended, contrary to nature and providence, which divided England and France, in the words of the poet, to connect them with hostile waves by a bridge over the strait or an underwater tunnel. The journey will gain in ease and convenience, but will lose in picturesqueness. The Queen of the Seas should be approached exclusively by ship, leaving international wagons to the continent. And while the ocean washes with its unruly waters 3 kingdoms, while England evokes the image of a sailing ship moored to the edge of Europe, let only sailors reach its shores. When in clear, whether Calais or Boulogne harbor is left behind, when you move away from the country dear to the heart, as the beautiful and very unhappy Queen Mary Stuart 11 sang in the distant past, the whitish cliffs, to which England owes its nickname Albion 12, gradually become clearer on the horizon. Soon, the high silhouette of Dover Castle appears, and behind it, Cape South Foreland. Downs Bay opens its arms, and in front of it, here and there, shoals peek out of the water, the remains of the sunken land, which is called the Goodwin Sands. The high cliffs of Ramsgate and Margate stand like sentinels guarding the coast. However, they let you through, and you safely go around North Foreland and, turning west, enter the mouth of the Thames. Around a right, left, behind, and in front, countless sailing ships and steamers are heading for the fairway, marked by multicolored buoys and buoys. Passing the Isle of Sheppey and Sheerness, a small port with countless arsenals, you approach the lightship that is the floating lighthouse, which is anchored at the very mouth of the Thames at the place where it merges with the Medway. On the right is Southend, a lovely resort town with a long wooden dam, and on the left, Gravesend, its mansions and churches. Then you pass under the now silent cannons of Tilbury Fort, the main defender of London, and suddenly you see the Thames, which until now looked like a wide estuary, and now nobly narrows and becomes like a river, Greenwich in late autumn. However, this is the nature of many rivers in Great Britain. No matter which sea their current rushes to, they are never very long and flow almost 3/4 of the way like all lowland streams, embroidering patterns on the green velvet of meadows and talking to the willows, which immerse green strands of drooping branches in their waters. But in its lower reaches, its channel widens sharply and, like hands, opens its arms to all the waves of the world. This is how the Thames, the Forth, and the Mersey behave. But let's go back to the Thames and continue our difficult journey. Behind Tilbury Fort, the number of all kinds of ships and boats increases so much that they become crowded. They scurry in all directions or sleep, frozen near the shores waiting to sail. Here it may seem that you are already in the London harbor, but no, the further, the more the bustle increases. It seems that you are being captured by a whirlwind of eternal movement. Masts soar upwards, sails inflate, rigging intertwines, every second threatens a collision, and if you have not gone to the bottom twice before touching the pier, then hurry to put a candle to St. Peter, the patron saint of sailors. Do not be afraid. This is a false threat. Ships collide, and break only in the vastness of the seas where they can meet only by a miracle, and here, in this ant-hill of brigs, schooners, three-masters boats, and boats which bypass each other without a break in such a narrow space that the catastrophe seems inevitable. The confusion is somehow organized. Skillful pilots create order out of chaos, and the enchanted observer enjoys the most wonderful sight in the world. A sight of the highest degree of intense human activity. Later, London will interest you with its wonders and treasures, but it will not be able to amaze you. Having seen the Thames, you have every right to expect the most incredible things, and therefore nothing will catch you by surprise. And so, huge warehouses, immense docks, and endless storehouses are built along the shores. Shipyards, next to which powerful warships, armored steamships, and monitors in triple armor slumber at anchor. From morning till evening, giant factories spew out clouds of smoke, and behind their roofs, not too far away, just enough to form a background visible to the eye, charming little houses are outlined on the slopes of the hills, which give you the first impression of the silence and comfort of family life under their roof and the charm of the English landscape. Then the Victoria docks appear before you, and they are replaced by the East and West India docks. Their very appearance inspires suspicion of the colossal wealth underlying British trade. The Greenwich Naval Hospital, the observatory on the hilltop, the floating hospital, Dreadnought, the Deptford shipyards complete this incomparable ensemble and complete the picture. The closer the city, the thicker the smog. This is the terrible scourge of London, and you fall under a real dome of smoke, which replaces the azure vault of Naples and Constantinople for the English capital. You advance along a majestic avenue of ships, which turns the poetic picture of a large port with a forest of masts into reality, and approach the custom house buildings, the final point of navigation. So, we were not mistaken, repeating the words of Henry Bulwer, who had every reason to assert that a foreigner should first enter the British capital from the banks of the Thames. The second time he can choose, but you need to start getting acquainted with London only this way. A wide river, strict and dark buildings of coastal factories, thick fog through which the countless vague shadows of giant outlines are barely distinguishable, the mysterious silence reigning everywhere. You slip into the city past large ships, symbols of the empire's power, and sadness, solemnity, grandeur, and even darkness surrounding you. In a word, everything prepares you for serious and gloomy greatness. The English call their river the Thames. We the French, with the disrespect for the spelling of foreign names inherent in our people as well as indifference to history and geography, have turned Thames into Thames and London into laundress, to the great indignation of our neighbors who take the trouble to write and pronounce the Seine and Paris as we do. But this is, by the way, a small detail that we will not dwell on any further. Pascal, with the colorful accuracy inherent in his phrases, called rivers moving roads. The English called the Thames a silent highway. It is indeed the busiest road in England, the man-made street of London, whose curves draw a giant letter M on its body. Below Chelsea, it heads straight north, then, passing under Westminster Bridge, turns east and follows this course to the London docks, located already outside the city walls. From here it rushes to the northeast, then expands between the silted banks and turns south, encircling its yellowish waters around the island, or, more precisely, the Dog Peninsula. At Blackfriars and Vauxhall Bridges, the width of the Thames reaches 210 meters. And it becomes twice as wide at Waterloo Bridge. The English, in their patriotism, easily go to immoderate raptures and dithyrambs when it is necessary to glorify everything that concerns their courageous nation and belongs to it, and therefore they praise and sing the Thames in all sorts of ways. If you believe them, it is incomparable, and you cannot find such a beautiful, large, and magnificent river in the whole world. Following the example of the Romans, the English willingly endow their beloved river with paternal rights. The Father Thames, such an expression is often heard from the mouths of Londoners. Various artists like to depict the Father Thames, and this is exactly what Doré did, preparing our frontispiece, in the guise of a majestic and venerable old man, with a Michelangelo forehead, mighty shoulders, a beard of slime descending in waves on a broad chest, and a powerful hand lying on the helm of a ship. People with imagination, who seek coincidences, similarities, and symbolism everywhere, have found analogies between the appearance of the Thames and the spirit of the English. And the river appears to them, like this spirit, gloomy, deep, and strong. Evening on the Thames, suburb of London, a sensible foreigner is content to simply admire the enchanting spectacle that unfolds before his eyes. He stands on the bow of the ship and sees, or thinks he sees, in the Grand Parade of Westminster, St. Paul's Cathedral, Somerset House, and thousands of spires of all shapes and sizes, resembling ghosts in foggy shrouds. It should be noted that you can only see the Thames from the water or from a bridge. It lacks what gives charm to all rivers, namely banks and embankments. Practical interests have killed the sense of beauty in the English. Docks, warehouses, shipyards everywhere descend almost to the very edge of the water, and sometimes huge cranes hang over it, with the help of which ships are unloaded. This is convenient, but not beautiful. The capital of England thus loses what could give everyone great pleasure. The Thames denies the citizens of London the pleasant walks that the banks of the Seine give to the Parisians, the Tiber to the Romans, the Arno to the Florentines, the Manzanares to the Madrilenians when there is water in it. And if you did not have to cross the Thames from time to time to get to the other bank, you could live all your life in London and not suspect that there is a river nearby. And you might even think that someone deliberately hid it from the eyes of curious foreigners. But the bridges thrown across the Thames allow you to admire the most beautiful views. Ahead is the bustling business life of the city to the right, and left are the magnificent monuments of the capital of the United Kingdom, which rise above the roofs of buildings like rocks or islands above the waves of the ocean. And above us, above our heads, is the sky, and sometimes, though very rarely, a ray of the sun slips between the clouds and then gets lost and fades in the clouds of smoke which thousands of factory pipes tirelessly and continuously spew out. London Bridge is the very first on the way from the sea to London, and it is as famous in England as the Parisian New Bridge is with us. This is the oldest bridge in the British capital, which for a long time remained the only one. Painting, poetry, and novels competed with each other. He was and still is their favorite theme, inspiring new creations. In the early years of the 11th century, a wooden bridge stood almost in the same place, which connected London with Southwark. Battles were fought on this bridge between the Danes and the Norwegians, these rulers of the seas whose willow boats captured the shores, sowing destruction, devastation, and death everywhere. In 1008, the troops of the Norwegian King Olaf destroyed London Bridge, captured the river above its ruins, besieged the city, and forced its surrender. But a bridge at this location was so vital, for it was the only bridge connecting a large area of England with the south and Europe. Therefore, it was quickly rebuilt and strengthened, turning it into a kind of water fortress. In 1091, a terrible storm destroyed the bridge, along with 600 houses in the old town. It was rebuilt again, but in 1136 a fire broke out, and only in 1163 was it able to be rebuilt again. All this was very expensive, as each time a wooden and rather unreliable bridge was built. Finally, between 1176 and 1209, Peter Colechurch built a stone bridge which, despite several destructions and partial reconstructions, stood until 1832. 18 meters high, 282 meters long, and 12 meters wide from one parapet to the other, it consisted of 20 arched spans. This bridge was both majestic and beautiful, but the mistake was that it was lined with 2 rows of houses, turning it into a narrow and dark street. A graceful chapel towered over the central span, dedicated to the memory of the Blessed Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, who fell victim to his own devotion to his pastoral duties. At the southern end of the bridge stood Southwark Gate, with a platform where the impaled heads of criminals executed for lèse-majesté were displayed. Among those who, whether through justice or vengeance and jealousy, fell into the executioner's clutches were some notables. The most frequently mentioned are Falconbridge, who sought to seize London Bridge to free Henry IV from the Tower of London. William Wallace, a legendary hero whose name lives in the hearts of every Scotsman. And, of course, Thomas More, for several months, the head of the great humanist, smiling and untouched, remained safe and sound, as if decay and death dared not touch it. This miracle was considered an insult to His Majesty, and the head, stubbornly refusing to part with life, was thrown into the river. Near these bone-white gates, members of the city parliament greeted their sovereigns when, glorious victories having been won, they returned from war to good old London. Nightly tournaments, highly fashionable in those feudal times when physical strength played a decisive role, were also held there. Like any other bridge, the London Bridge has survived all manner of destruction and been partially rebuilt several times. One day, a fire, another storm, one day a hurricane, the next, a river breakup and ice drift. Sometimes 2 or 3 spans would be blown away, buildings would collapse, and the river would swallow them up along with their unfortunate occupants. The bridge and buildings were restored. Their precariousness didn't bother anyone. It wasn't until 1757 that the city's guild leaders ordered the demolition of these parasitic structures, which not only spoiled the view, but also impeded traffic. In 1822, Parliament decreed that a new bridge be built, wider and stronger than the old one, in a word, more monumental. The task was carried out to the letter by John Rennie and his sons, the architects of the new bridge. And it's fair to say the result of their labors was quite impressive. There's constant movement both on and under London Bridge. Below, a variety of vessels struggle to pass, while above, chaos reigns. Pedestrians, horse riders, carriages, cabs, carts, wagons, all in a maddening jumble. It seems impossible to pass or drive, and that everything is about to come to a standstill. In the vicinity of London Bridge and all the piers where passenger steamers dock, the traveler first encounters the oppressive English poverty, perhaps the deepest and most striking in this vale of tears given to man to live. It is here that he is first surrounded by a pale crowd of outcasts. Later, it will often stand in his way, cheeks sunken with hunger, feverish gleams in their eyes, vile depraved lips, the stamp of vice on their foreheads, hideous yet stupid expressions. And suddenly these ghosts, vampires, and ghouls come to life. The hope of earning a shilling or simply receiving sixpence inspires them with ardor and fervor, for it opens the way to a ration of gin or brandy. They pounce on bundles and suitcases, snatching up your belongings and willingly tearing you to pieces, if only to prove their zeal and desire to serve and snatch at least something from your generosity. Nowhere do beggars appear so selfish and repulsive as in London, and nowhere are need and destitution so heartbreakingly manifest. In other countries, warm and sunlit poverty has a certain romanticism that softens its bitterness and beautifies its horrific nature. There is even something theatrical about the Spanish and Italian beggar. Southern rags beg to be sketched. They inspire artists, promising to look decent on canvas. In London, it's different. There, poverty is poverty, and nothing more, even though the beggar dresses in a gentleman's shabby tailcoat and clasps on his head what was once a silk hat and now has no name in any language. If you're looking for a secluded spot in London, look no further than Southwark Bridge. It's a toll bridge built between two other bridges, London Bridge and Blackfriars Bridge, that are free to cross. Architect John Rennie, the same one who designed London Bridge, built Southwark Bridge at the narrowest point of the Thames. This structure rests on stone piers, which in turn rest on enormous piles, and has 3 cast-iron arched spans. The central span is 73 meters wide, and each of the side spans is 64 meters. The total length of the bridge between the two abutments is 216 meters. The foundation stone of Southwark Bridge was laid in 1815. Construction lasted 4 years and cost $20 million. People only use it when they're in a hurry. It's like a straight line connecting 2 points and therefore the shortest. Idle people never use it to cross the river. Blackfriars Bridge owes its name to the Dominican monastery located nearby on the left bank of the Thames. Built between 1760 and 1769 by the renowned engineer Robert Milne, the bridge was initially named after Prime Minister Pitt. The bridge is just over 300 meters long and has 9 spans of varying lengths and heights. Ionic columns cling to the outer sides of the piers, seemingly superfluous, as they serve no purpose. Architecture is the most rigorous of the arts. It eschews empty embellishments. Anything that cannot be justified pleases neither the mind nor the eye. I know of nothing more beautiful than a stroll across Blackfriars Bridge on a moonlit June night when the scattered crowd gives way to dreamy poets and contemplative artists. Below, the shifting abyss stretches. Yawning and dark, it seems to beckon. But if you look up, a panorama of countless buildings opens up like stone waves in the lapping roofs, above which rises the gigantic dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. To the east, the dark, grim silhouette of the Tower of London looms majestic, terrifying, and menacing. To the west, the beautiful Somerset House and the incomparable, unrivaled Westminster Abbey, unrivaled in all of England. Even those whose vision is not clouded by the incense of patriotic pride acknowledge that Waterloo Bridge is one of the most beautiful in the world. Its construction lasted 6 years, from 1811 to 1817. It opened on July 18th, the second anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo, after which it was named. John Rennie brought to fruition the grandiose designs and plans of engineer Rattle Donal. This magnificent structure consists of 9 spans, each 36 meters wide and 10.5 meters high. From parapet to parapet, it measures 21 meters, and the total length of the bridge is 404 meters. 27 brick arches extend the bridge towards Surrey, and another 16 connect it to the Strand. Thus, the total length is 748 meters. The bridge is faced with granite quarried in Cornwall, Derbyshire, and Aberdeen. Each pier is adorned with 2 Doric columns, supporting rounded platforms that project so boldly beyond the bridge that they take one's breath away. Even the toll booths 17 are built in the Doric style, which completes the truly majestic appearance of the structure. And every day, approximately 20,000 people cross Waterloo Bridge. Even busier traffic is observed on Charing Cross Bridge, which connects Brighton and Southampton railway stations with Trafalgar Square, where almost all the capital's streets converge. Charing Cross is unremarkable, its main feature being its utility. It is a quintessentially English bridge. Its supports are steel piles resting on metal cylinders that sink deep into the riverbed. The roadway is constructed of wrought iron sheets. Each span is 48 meters long, and even at high tide, there remains a gap of 8 meters between the water and the bridge. Charing Cross is for railway lines flanked by 2 pedestrian walkways, which are constantly used by people rushing from one bank to the other. The Palace of Westminster remained cut off from the southern boroughs of London for a very long time. To cross the river, one had to either go upstream or downstream. This situation was too inconvenient and therefore could not last forever. At the beginning of the last century, construction began on a wooden bridge right in front of the palace. Nowadays, we've learned to build even gigantic structures quickly, but back then, everything was done slowly, unhurriedly. But so many accidents occurred during construction that work was interrupted, and in 1738, Charles Le Bel, a Swiss naturalized in England, was commissioned to build a stone bridge. Its construction lasted over 11 years, and in 1750, the bridge finally opened. It became the most magnificent bridge in the entire United Kingdom. 360 meters long and 13 meters wide, it consisted of 15 arched spans of varying sizes from 16 to 23 meters. But its strength proved far inferior to its beauty. After a very short time, Westminster Bridge, which had cost $10 million, was in danger of collapse, and it could only be strengthened with pitiful contrivances and shameful scaffolding. The need for its reconstruction arose. It's fair to say the English are driven by practicality. As soon as they realize something needs to be done, they do it. The modern bridge was designed and built under the direction of the architect Page, who succeeded in creating a remarkably well-proportioned structure. The new bridge is 26 meters wide, 15 of which are roadways. This is flanked on both sides by magnificent sidewalks, each 4.5 meters wide. The bridge's high arches rest on piers, each supported by 233 piles of steel and elm trunks, which extend 6 meters into the strong, waterproof clay that forms the riverbed. The spans of the elliptical arches range from 29 to 36 meters in width. The keystones of the vaults and the upper portions of the ellipses are made of wrought iron, while all other structural elements are cast iron. This achieved both lightness and strength, whereas construction usually sacrifices the former for the latter. Vauxhall Bridge, a less significant bridge, was originally called Regent's Bridge, but its proximity to Vauxhall Gardens, which it connects to the opposite bank, led to the name change. The bridge is the work of 5 or 6 engineers, some of them quite famous. Ralph Dodd, Jeremy Bentham, John Rennie, and James Walker took turns supervising construction, which began in 1811 and was completed in 1816. The bridge consists of 9 cast iron arches, each 24 meters wide. These arches rest on piers constructed of stone and Roman cement. The bridge is 240 meters long and 11 meters wide between parapets. The Victoria Bridge, begun in 1859 by the son of the architect Fowler, financed by the Victoria Railway Company, is a typical structure of our time. The British are particularly adept at constructing such structures. The bridge is constructed entirely of wrought iron. Certainly, this is not the best invention for monumental architecture. But alas, it seems beauty has lost its primacy in our time. Above and very close to Victoria Bridge stands the Chelsea Suspension Bridge, which connects the beautiful Battersea Park with the densely populated areas of Pimlico and Chelsea, after which it is named. The bridge is suspended from two steel pillars, 27 meters high and 6 meters wide, supported by steel and elm piles buried 10 meters deep. 2 graceful Chinese-style turrets rise above the pylons. The ticket office also resembles pavilions. English architects are distinguished more by their memory than their imagination, and many try to understand the meaning of these fantasies borrowed from the Far East, awash in azure and sunlight under London's foggy skies. If London Bridge is the first bridge from the sea to the British capital, then Battersea Bridge is the last, and the distance between them is 5 miles. Battersea Bridge's purpose is almost identical to Chelsea Bridge. It was built in 1771 and cost only 600,000 francs. This is a small amount not only for England, but also for a bridge across the Thames. 24 unsightly arches of varying sizes, here and there reinforced with massive scaffolding, cannot compare with the splendor of London and Westminster bridges, or even Waterloo Bridge. But its builders apparently decided that for the remote and common area it serves, this would suffice.